Wonderful Friday, and please be safe this weekend out on your ventures. This commentary is pertaining to Brian C. Kohberger. He has been accused of unaliving 4 Idaho students, and Mr. Gonsalves gave an interview, the father of Kaylee. He gave an interview with Fox 13 Seattle, and I'm going to play a brief snippet of that, and then I will give you my opinion of the said information. If you'd like to donate to this great network, $Maganji 129 Cash App. Stickers and chats are always welcome during the live stream. While I give my commentary and also play this audio, we will take a tour of Moscow, Idaho, courtesy of Oregon Tropics. Thank you for joining me. Hope y'all have a wonderful weekend. It's a beautiful day here in I-10. Gorgeous. All right, everybody. This is Mr. Gonsalves speaking with a reporter at Fox 13 Seattle.
That the jury trust us, you're just gonna have, and she called me.
1 second.
We could do more to protect.
I had it.
It was, filings that were coming out, right? How there's so many of them coming out. I know you've been paying close attention to them. In one of them recently, it talked about alternative perpetrators and how there could be others, dozens of others who could be behind this. What are your thoughts on that? Do you still think they have the right guy?
Oh, I know they have the right guy. The DNA under, Maddie's leg, under a blanket. You don't get your DNA at a crime scene when you have nothing to do with the crime scene, and then it just happens to have surveillance of like 5 cameras to have your white car driving around. How many teenagers do you know? Or somebody that's 28 who just turned their phone off in the middle of the night with 90-some% battery life. And it's my understanding that they know how the phone was turned off. So this individual went out that night. The chances of you driving around that night are pretty slim. 240 something. He left his house, turns his phone off, and goes and does some convert stuff. Look, this guy thinks he's smarter than Idaho. He thinks he's way above us, and he's gonna get away with it. He's gonna trick everybody. He's got his PhD, fancy degree, and he thought he could come out here and kill and get away with it, become some kind of famous serial killer. But I don't think it's gonna end well for him, and I think he's gonna realize that Idaho doesn't play, and he's got some scary days ahead of him.
How do you feel about these autism claims and trying to remove the death penalty off the table?
For as smart as he was really stupid. I hate to say it, but if he would have did those crimes in Washington, he would be looking at a whole different reality. He would not be looking at the death penalty. He would not be looking at people that are really going to be engaged in the case at the level that they are. The reason this case is blown up is because in Idaho we really care, and we don't take a murder like this, lightly. And people being killed in their bed while they're asleep, going to school, trying to improve their lives. That's like the last place you should actually be, facing a circumstance like that. So, I think he was kind of foolish. He was kind of foolish, and the only thing that makes sense to go from one state that you live in that doesn't have the death penalty to one that does have it by choice means that he disrespected everybody that is a citizen in Idaho, and he thought that we wouldn't have the conviction to follow this case all the way through, and the risk of going to a death penalty state made more sense for him. That was a strategy that he realized that we know more than you know, and it's like,
I want to stop there. Feel free to check out that content. It was uploaded 4 days ago, Fox 13 Seattle. So you hear Mr. Gonsalves talking about, at the beginning of that commentary, people talking negatively about the girls, the 2, Dylan and Bethany, what they didn't do. And, I have a lot of strong feelings about their behavior because you can't go back. So I'm going to touch on that before I end this live stream. He says that under her blanket was Kohberger's DNA, and he mentioned something about the leg. I don't know if he meant to say under the leg or on the leg. That's very interesting information to now have. And with these filings, more information is coming out pertaining to DNA evidentiary material against Mr. Kohberger. So how did his leg or DNA or anything of his body parts got under there? Well, naturally, if these girls are in the bed, sleeping, sitting upright, whichsoever, he's attacking them. So he's close proximity. And you're assuming with clothes on. So now you got to ask, how would your DNA get up under a cover if the girls were covered up? So that's why I asked the question in my last live stream pertaining to what did Kohberger do to these females? Did he take any trophies from the house, the bedrooms? Did he take pictures of himself in the rooms with the young ladies? Did he take pictures of his victims, okay? After his crimes, did he take photographs of the victims? Did he do anything sexual to Maddie and Kaylee in the room? Touch them after death? Did he touch himself, pull out any body parts? Because I'm trying to understand this DNA under the blanket and on Maddie's leg. How would your DNA get on her leg? He didn't say fibers. He didn't say a piece of clothing. And naturally, these victims probably do have DNA under their fingernails where they were grabbing on Mr. Kohberger, fighting for their life, pulling on the shirt, sweatshirt, mask, face, hands. Because it was said that some of the victims fought back. Don't know which ones, but use common sense. You're fighting someone back, you're grabbing them. You're trying to hold on, trying to push them off. So what DNA is under the fingernails of the victims? We also learned that he texted one of the girls on social media 2 weeks before the murders, okay? So is this the motive for the homicides? She has not responded. I've reached out to her at least 2 times or so. It has been said in documents, data, that the female did not respond. Who was the female that he reached out to? What did he say? Hello? How are you? No response. He's become angry. So then we go back to the latest information, when the mask was purchased, when the knife sheath, the knife and the sharpener purchased. They were purchased the earlier part of the year, January and March. So we have to ask ourselves, was he planning to exact a crime when he purchased those items in January and March, number one? Did he already have a target in mind? Did he have these targets in mind? Did he move to Washington to emulate the famous Theodore Bundy? Is Theodore Bundy his idol, the person he's been looking up to exact murders? We have heard this on a few broadcasts that perhaps he idolized Ted Bundy. So he went out to the stomping ground of where Ted Bundy resided, which was the state of Washington. Did he deliberately apply to school to Washington State to follow in the footsteps of Ted Bundy? It's a very good question. Because I said perhaps he found the girls on social media before attending school, applying to school rather, and that's why he went out there. See, we don't know. We'd have to see if he took notes. So did he take notes on why he wanted to murder, who his target was at the time or targets? And also, did he plan on murdering anyone after November 13th quadruple homicides? Lots of questions. Did any of the girls, or one of the females rather, was she tempted to message back? She looked at the picture, thought, well, it doesn't look interesting, I won't message back. Did he try to reach out to any of the other girls in the house? And what is still interesting to most of us is the fact that he only followed 3 females, brief intermission, 3 of the females, which would have been Maddie, Kaylee, and Xana. Why those 3? I think we know why those 3, because they seem to be more in photographs and had more of a bond with one another. Those 3. than perhaps Bethany and Dylan. I would assume Bethany and Dylan had more of a bond with one another than the other three. So I do find it interesting that information was released a few days ago. Kohberger seemed in tune with just the three girls. And so when you look at what happened in that house, those were the three that were murdered that were females. Stay woke. I like these three. They're close. They're always in pictures together. They're pretty. They seem happy. They seem bubbly. I like one of them. I'm interested in one, but she won't reach out to me. She won't respond. I'll fix that. See, it's all weird. Everything from learning when he bought these knives, the knife sheath, the sharpener, purchasing the mask. Mask was first. Some could say, oh, well, he bought it because the weather was cold in Pennsylvania. Don't know. But the point is, that type of mask was described on the perpetrator by Dylan. And we have all these data dumps putting him at the scene the summer before the homicides. He was over at this address 12 times before the murders. That's a lot of times, considering he was a PhD student and also a teacher's assistant. You would think he had better things to do than ride over to that address 12 times. Then you include the murder itself, that's 13 times. And then 14 times is when he returned after 9 a.m. Make it make sense. So I'm assuming the state will be putting all this data together to give us a timeline of when he applied to school, his motive for applying to Washington State, his motive for majoring in psychology, criminal psychology, and also picking the three targets. And I think it is very interesting that if he only followed those three, he only liked those three photographs, pictures, Maddie's particularly, he left the two intentionally. And common sense would also tell you he's been to the house that many times before the murders, 12 times. That means he knew who lived in the house. It wasn't happenstance that he's liking someone's picture and they just so happen to live at 1122 King Road, and he's also been charged with homicide of the said parties at that same house and was also following them on social media. So this is deliberate. There is no, oh, he was just driving over to another state or town to try to find somebody to murder. No, he followed these girls on social media. That shows cause, that shows deliberation. That shows intentional. He was intent in the stalking. He became angry, and on that fateful morning, he lied in wait and he killed the victims. No accident. Even if his intent was to murder someone at some point in life, this still seems intentional, the victims that he chose, because he followed them on social media. So there's your connection. How he came about them, that's a whole nother story. When he came about them, first time he reached out, the build-up, friend suggestion on IG, Facebook. Oh, she's pretty. Oh, her friend is pretty. Oh, the other friend's pretty. I like her. But why did he wait so long to reach out? Because if he waited, that would have been probably around the 1st of November or end of October that he reached out. To one of the girls. It's a long time. From what, late summer, August or so, to be tracking them, following them until November 13th. Put it together. He went all those months with no contact, no messaging, no texting, and then finally built up the courage to reach out to one of the females, but she did not respond. So I'm assuming he became irate and said, oh, I'll show you. I will not be ignored. Once again, this commentary I played for you, Fox 13 and Mr. Gonzalez talking about DNA, death penalty, he's stalking the girls. He had one in mind particular. Some believe it's Maddie, some others may think it's Kaylee, some thought it was Santa. We won't know until trial begins. But what I'm trying to put together is how he came across the girls. Why did he choose those girls? Why did he choose the target? And was he going to unalive someone after he killed the 4? Okay? After. And I've also asked you those questions on my polls pertaining to who was the target, why were 2 left? Well, we now know why he didn't want them. If he followed 3 on social media, liked 1's pictures in particular, that means he chose them deliberately, found out where they lived, and killed them. And he left 2 behind, and he knew that they lived there and that they were in that house. Checkmate. As for Mr. Gonzalez's comments about victim shaming, so on and so forth, as I said before, Dylan and Bethany to me are not victims. They're not victims, they're not survivors. Because you have said it out of your own mouth pertaining to who he liked and who he was following. He had no intention of killing those 2, unless maybe it was a run-up face-to-face, which we did hear that. She said she saw him, but he walked right by and let her, and did not harm her, because maybe that was the intent. He had no intent on harming those other 2. So it's still very interesting. But they're not victims, and nor are they survivors, because you can't be a survivor if the perpetrator had no intention of murdering you, which he didn't. You didn't survive anything because you weren't attacked, so they're not survivors. And they're not victims because they are alive. You can't have one without the other. I call a spade a spade. I see things in black and white as best that I can. Everyone's perception of things are different. And the one thing I'm going to say before I check out of here pertaining to these 2 females that some of you believe were survivors. If this is what you want to teach your children, is to put your head in the sand in a dire situation, you're not helping your children. Even 5-year-olds know to call 911 if someone was breaking into their house. A stranger has walked by their room. They have access to a phone. They know to dial 911 or to at least hide under the bed or go hide in the closet. You're talking about 19, 20-year-old women who did not have that type of common sense, and they lived there. Now, their reasonings for not calling 911 when they realized something was not right after the females did not respond on their phones or message systems should have thrown a red flag. The fact that they got up earlier in the morning, texting at 7:30 in the morning up until almost 12, shows there was no fear of anything that happened in that house. Because if I fear for my safety at 7 a.m., 8 a.m., 11 a.m., by no means am I going to be on the cell phone checking data pertaining to a job that I applied for or applying to, calling this person, that person, being on TikTok, Yik Yak, Facebook, calling different people. Both of these females were doing that in the same room downstairs on the first floor. And that does not show fear to me. That does not show trauma to me. And I know they will never admit that they knew that those kids were dead. And there's no way in that house, old as it was, you couldn't hear trauma, madness, mayhem in that house. Because noise travels in a house, especially in the still of the night or the morning. And if people are fighting for their lives, I refuse to believe that it was quiet on the 3rd floor or the 2nd floor. You see, people choose to hear what they want and see what they want. And they will never admit that they knew that something was going on the 3rd floor and the 2nd floor. And Maddie's room would have been above Dylan's. She would have heard some type of wrangling going on in that room. Same with Bethany. Her room sat on the Xana's room. So she would have heard something going on in that room. 2 people falling down, hitting the walls, hitting the floor. You heard something. That is the reason why Bethany was the first one to initiate a text. Say, woke everybody. Her text came in, I believe, at 4:19 while all this was going on. Now, that means she was up. Dylan saw the perpetrator walk by her and go out the glass door off the kitchen. That means she was up. And Bethany was the first one to text on the phone. Why was that? Because she heard the ruckus in the house as well. maybe not the third floor, but she heard the mayhem between Kohberger and Santa and Ethan. That's why she got to protect him. This is a tour of Moscow, Idaho that you're watching on this screen. Feel free to go to my community page to check out the said video. Oregon Tropicals is the proprietor of this video. I believe I showed this video 2 or so years ago. This is a terrible story. And as I said, the message Travis, I don't think is a productive message about how to react to certain things. You've got to teach your children to be aware of their faculties, to be aware of their environment, to not put their head in the sand. Because if everyone walked around and behaved this way, there would be more crimes unsolved, quite frankly. If there was no CCTV footage, more crimes would not be solved. And what would be even worse is that someone, and I'm talking about these 2 females, Bethany and Dylan, if they were there, aware of what was going on, went and peeked and looked and saw that these kids were dead and did not say anything, that would be even more atrocious than the crimes themselves. And they will take that secret to the grave, I would assume. But the one thing we've learned about true crime is that people pillow talk, and people also talk when they're inebriated, and they tell on themselves. Oh, let me talk to you about this fateful night when I was in a house where 4 people were murdered. I did hear what happened. I did get up and go peek through the house and found these kids dead, but I didn't call 911. I don't know why. I was scared. Did they go through the house, Dylan and Bethany, and find their friends dead and did not call 911? Because after careful observation of listening to the 911 call, this conversation now with Mr. Gonsalves, this data coming out from documents, the fact that these people were up at 7-something in the morning calling different people for 4.5 hours, they didn't know what happened in that house. And they turned a blind eye. And this is not a message you want to teach to your children, to your young adults as well. That if you see something, you say something. Be a part of the solution, not the problem. Because one day you may be in the same predicament. And you would want someone to call 911. Whether you're alive or dead, it doesn't matter. The point is, you call the law. DNA under Maddie's cover leg by Mr. Kohberger. What was he doing for his DNA to get under the cover? See, we don't know what he did in that room after murdering these kids. He could have, for those, got in the bed with them in a sick, twisted way, wanted to be close to the victims. We've heard of all type of macabre things that go on with dead people and the living. Did he get into bed with these females? Did he do anything to them, touch their bodies? Did he put any of his body parts, leg, arm, private parts on the victims? Once again, did he take pictures? Because I'd like to know how his DNA got under or on Maddie's leg and under her cover. Very interesting information. And he also texted his target 2 weeks before the homicides. Who was the target? Maddie, Kaylee, or Santa? And he also left 2 alive, and it's looking like it was intentional. He had no intent on harming Bethany or Dylan. That's why he walked by Dylan in that small hallway, made eye-to-eye contact, and left her alive. That's my commentary. Like, share, subscribe, drop your comments below this video, take the polls on my community page. Have a wonderful weekend. Please be safe. I will put up a movie for the weekend for your enjoyment. Prayers to those who perished in the tornadoes that touched down this week. God bless all of you. Thank you for watching this network, and welcome all new viewers and subscribers. Thank you, Lolo and Scott Mayton, for joining this live stream. I'm sure there will be more information coming out up until August when his trial will begin. Hopefully it will start on time. There won't be any shenanigans and holdups because it is time to get justice for these children. And I hope that he is found guilty. I do believe Kohberger is the perpetrator. And I pray the 12 members of the jury will do right by these kids. And I also hope they will vote for the death penalty. That's my update. Once again, prayers to the family of Mr. Val Kimmer. He passed away at 65 years of age. Wendy Williams is currently working on getting her guardianship removed and getting removed from the facility in New York. She has a new attorney. He is a fellow attorney, defense attorney that represented ASAP Rocky, who was found not guilty of said crimes in LA. He's supposed to be a shrewd fella, and we will see if he can help Wendy's team in getting her guardianship lifted. And that's the latest information. You all have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. You have been listening to the Vault XL. Thank you.